Raindrop, drip, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Cooking up dope in the park pot.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're a current student of mine, it's so nice to see you. I've missed you guys so much these last 2 weeks. If you don't know who I am, my name is Steve Lucas. I'm a master cosmetologist and also an educator in the Aveda and Douglas J networks. It's really nice to meet you. So what is my channel going to be about? So right now we're all in these crazy uncertain times and a lot of students are receiving education from home, which is great. We're keeping graduation dates on track. That's fabulous, but maybe we're not getting as much hands-on experience as we're used to getting. As someone who can't really sit around and do nothing, I definitely understand being frustrated if you're at home and you feel like you really need to get your hands in some hair. So that's what we're gonna do today. I just want to start off by going over a few key concepts in hair cutting, because if you don't understand what I'm talking about during the videos, it's not really going to help you very much. So whether you're already in the process of getting your education or you know absolutely nothing about hair, but it's something you're interested in doing, I want you to know what I'm talking about. The first concept I want to go over today is elevation. What does that mean? I like to think of elevation as an airplane. As we're elevating, we're going up, and as we're landing or de-elevating, we're coming down. So elevation is essentially that same concept except on someone's head. So elevation is taking a section, let's just take a vertical section here, and I'm going to pull this out at 90 degrees. So I am now elevating this hair at 90 degrees. What this does is shifts weight from the perimeter of the haircut upwards. Elevation, moving the hair up and down. The next key concept that I want to go over is over direction. Over direction is almost the exact same concept as elevation, except instead of moving the weight up and down, we're shifting forwards, backwards, and side to side. Elevation, up and down, over direction, forwards and backwards. What does that look like? Let's take our same vertical section as an example, and I'm just going to pull it 90 degrees from the mannequin head. This is no over direction at all. I'm just pulling it out where it lives on the mannequin head. I could over direct this backwards. What's going to happen when I do that is I'm going to be preserving length towards the front and making it shorter in the back. So elevation, up and down, over direction, forwards and backwards. The last key concept that I want to talk about right now is finger angle. Why is the finger angle important? Well, it greatly changes the haircut that you are creating on your mannequin or on your guest's head. So one more time, let's take our vertical section and pull this out at 90 degrees. If I pull this out at 90 degrees and I'm holding my fingers straight up and down, I'm going to create a blunt cut when I cut this section. So everything in this section is going to be getting cut to the same length. If I wanted to change up my finger angle because I wanted to leave a little bit more length as I'm moving down my section, I could hold my fingers with the bottom out and the top in. This is going to create shorter pieces here and longer pieces down at my perimeter. The same is true if I want to do the opposite. I could pull it out and hold my fingers at a 45-degree angle, and then I'm leaving more length at the top and making it shorter at the bottom. So when you're thinking about what kind of silhouette and what kind of shape you want to create in a haircut, these are the 3 concepts that you need to think about. And you need to think about where you want to do which concept on the mannequin or guest's head. Being an educator and working with students all the time, I tend to know where people get confused the most. I think that when you're in school, you're learning very basic things. And maybe those concepts can be a little confusing because you don't realize that you can do different things in different areas depending on what you're trying to create. Let me give you an example. We teach students basic techniques, layering, graduating, and one length, and we teach them the 3 basic shapes: triangular, round, and square. When we teach these concepts, we teach a whole technique and a whole shape together. An example of that would be a square layered haircut. When students are on the floor and they're thinking about how to create a haircut on their guest, it's almost like they feel like they have to do a square layered haircut everywhere. And that's not the case. When you think about haircutting, there are only 3 shapes, which I just mentioned, and only 3 techniques, which I also just mentioned. The way that we create different haircuts is by using the different shapes and techniques in different areas of our haircut. What this means is we don't have to give our guest a round layered haircut all throughout their head. We could do round layers in the back and triangular layers in the front if we wanted to preserve length in the front. This would translate into doing a triangular one length, which is preserving length towards the front, and then doing round layers in the back to create a nice tapered in effect, and bringing triangular layers back for the front of the haircut so that it more matches the perimeter of the haircut in the front, instead of having a triangular shape at the bottom and round layers throughout the haircut. That would look kind of like long down here, and then kind of like you would be creating a shelf of weight if you were to do that. I know that doesn't make any sense, and I know that's really confusing at the moment because we haven't actually gotten into any of the shapes and techniques as far as haircutting is concerned. So let's go ahead and get into that right now. As I mentioned, there are 3 techniques when it comes to cutting the hair. The first technique is a one length haircut, which simply means I'm not elevating the hair at all. So my degree of elevation is 0 degrees. That looks like a very blunt cut with all of the weight at the perimeter of the haircut. The next technique is graduating. Graduating is elevating the hair from 1 degrees up to 89 degrees. That looks like, first let me pull out a vertical section. And if I were to elevate the hair at 45 degrees, that's what this looks like. 45 degrees is making it a little bit less weight at the bottom and a little bit more weight at the top. So I'm shifting my weight from bottom to top. So graduating, I'm shifting my weight upwards. Layering is the third technique, and layering is elevating the hair at 90 degrees and higher. If I elevate this section to 90 degrees, I'm shifting the weight a lot further up than I would be if I were simply graduating the haircut. So those are the 3 techniques that you're going to hear me refer to when I'm saying blunt cut or one length cut or 0 degree elevation cut. Those all mean the same thing. When I'm referring to a layered haircut or a 90 degree haircut, those are the same thing. When I'm referring to a graduated cut or a 45 degree haircut, those are also the same thing. I know that some students learned the shapes and techniques as I'm explaining them right now, but a lot of students also learn angles. So a lot of students would know a 90 degree haircut as a layered haircut, or vice versa, or a 45 degree haircut as a graduated haircut, or vice versa. So I just want to be really universal in my language and really clear, so that no matter if you're in my network or another network or you know nothing about hair, you're getting the most out of this education that I'm providing for you. When it comes to shapes and haircuts, that gets a little bit more confusing. It's very hard to look at a picture and see the shape in a haircut if you're not a seasoned stylist. It's also very hard to look at a mannequin head and see shape in a haircut if you don't know what you're looking for. There are 2 different ways that we can see shape in a haircut. 2 different perspectives that we can look at to see the shape in a haircut. The first perspective is called the vertical perspective, and that's exactly what it sounds like. If the floor is the horizon and we want a vertical perspective, we need to be perpendicular to the horizon. So basically, we need to create a 90 degree angle. So looking at the mannequin right now, we are looking at the vertical perspective. If we wanted to see the horizontal perspective of the mannequin, we would need to look from above looking down, because we want to be parallel with the horizon or parallel with the floor. So those are the two perspectives in which you can see the shape in a haircut. Right now we have a vertical perspective. So let me try and explain a shape to you. If I pull the hair out at 90 degrees on each side of the head and the top of the head, so I'm pulling all the hair on the top straight up. Let me grab another comb. I'm pulling all this hair straight up, and I'm pulling all this hair straight out. If I do that, sorry, can't get my comb straight. If I pull all the hair on the side straight out and all the hair at the top straight up, I'm creating a square shaped haircut. I do have some visuals that I'm going to talk about more in depth when we get more into this series. Right now we're just talking basic things so that everybody can be on the same page when the series actually gets more intense. If I wanted to create a round shape in my haircut, that's exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to pull the hair out everywhere that it lives on the head as I work my way around the head. I just said as I work my way around the head. So if you're working your way around the head because the head shape is already round, that's going to create a round shape in your haircut. The last basic concept that I want to cover in this video is the guide. Anytime you're cutting hair, you have a guide. What does that mean? A guide is what is guiding you to what you should be cutting. If you can't see your guide, you should not cut the section. You've either taken too much hair in your section, or you've lost your guide, or your guide is not correct. In any of those situations, put down the comb and scissors, take a step back, grab the comb again, and refine your guide before you make any further cuts. Because if you're cutting blind, you're not going to create a great haircut. The first type of guide that I want to talk about is a stationary guide. Let me show you what I mean. If I pull a vertical section out right here and cut this, and then I pull a vertical section out right next to it and pull it back to that guide I just created, and then I pull another vertical section out and I pull that back to the same guide, that is a stationary guide. My guide is not moving. It's in one spot and I'm bringing all the hair to that. You may have noticed that that looks a lot like over direction, and that's exactly what it is. I'm over directing all this hair at the front backwards to my stationary guide. So what is that going to do? Anybody? Just kidding, I know you can't respond. It's going to preserve length towards the front. So if I'm over directing the hair backwards to a stationary guide from the front, it's going to preserve length towards the front. So my haircut's going to be shorter in the back and longer in the front. The next guide that I want to talk about is a traveling guide. A traveling guide is a guide that comes with you as you work your way around the head shape. So let me pull out the same vertical section of hair. If I were going to cut this section and make this section my traveling guide, I would cut it here, and then I would take a small section of this section I just cut with me and pull out my next section, and that would be my guide. I would do that all the way around the head shape. So every time I pull a new section out, I'm taking a little piece of that guide with me. That's called a traveling guide. That allows you to move around the head shape without over directing the hair forward or backwards, or at least minimizing the amount you're over directing the hair. That's going to give you a much more uniform haircut because you're not over directing the hair forward or backwards, which means you're not preserving length forward or backwards. You're cutting everything to the same length. The last guide that I want to talk about is called a spatial guide. We don't really use this too much. I like to do it when I'm doing face frames. What it basically means is you're finding an object around you and you're pulling all the hair to that stationary point. So when I'm doing a face frame, I like to stand in front of my guest, have my guest sit straight up, and find a point on my body that they can stare at. Once that happens, I pull all their hair to my center of gravity. So if I'm working on the side and I'm pulling it towards my center, I'm obviously over directing, which is going to preserve length. So that's called a spatial guide. Okay everybody, that's all I wanted to cover in these videos. The simple, basic concepts that you need to know and understand in order to understand the future videos that are going to be coming out in the haircutting series. Remember all of the basic concepts that we went over in this video. First, we talked about elevating the hair, which is moving the hair up and down. We talked about over-directing the hair, which is shifting the weight forwards, backwards, and side to side. We talked about our finger angle, which is how we're angling our fingers, when we cut our section. We talked about the 3 shapes of haircut: round, triangle, and square. We talked about the 3 techniques for cutting hair: one length, 0 degree, or blunt cut, all the same thing. Graduation or 45-degree haircut, same thing. And layering or a 90-degree haircut, same thing depending on how you've learned it. And of course, we covered the different kinds of guides. A stationary guide, which doesn't move, a traveling guide, which travels through your haircut with you, and a spatial guide, which is an object that you're over-directing all of the hair to that's not part of the haircut itself. I really enjoyed seeing you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up or a like, subscribe to my channel. If you know anybody who would be interested in this, have them subscribe to my channel. Once I get to 100 subscribers, I can create a customized URL for my channel, which would be amazing because it'll make it a lot easier for people to find. So I'm aiming for that at the moment. Again, I just wanted to go over the basic concepts today. Friday there will be a new video up. This is kind of a surprise video that I'm going to post. I hope you all have a great night. Thanks for watching.